Hi, I'm Dr. Merlin Switzer. Hey, welcome back to Coaching for Performance. Step 8 is document. Document the conversation. Now, early on, depending on the context of the conversation, may not be necessary to document it. If you've had more than one conversation with the individual, even on a minor thing, it's probably time that you just made a note of it and put that in your work file for that particular employee. But as it gets more serious, and this could happen on the first conversation, we might want to document the full conversation that we've had. And I'm really an advocate of following these steps. For example, in your documentation, you might describe the behavior that you talked to the employee, the date and time you had that conversation. You might include in there a paragraph or a sentence or two regarding the impact of that behavior. Certainly want to clarify expectations in terms of what the right behavior for that employee is. Be clear about the consequences. You might just have a sentence in there that you talked about the potential of positive and negative consequences if that behavior changes for the good or doesn't change. Step 5, you might even bullet the different action steps that the employee brainstormed, and then of course commit to action. What are those things that the employee said that they were going to do and when they were going to do them? Follow-up is important as well. And so how will that follow-up take place? And so documented in this part, this fashion can be very helpful. In a position that I was in, I made recommendation of termination about once or twice a year. And when I would write that up, I would write up following this basic outline. And in my context, often the situation before termination would be final would go to a civil service commission. And I don't recall that we ever lost. Why? The employee clearly knew what the problem behavior was. They knew what the impacts of the behavior was. They knew what the expectations were. They had been informed and knew that there could be consequences if their behavior didn't change. They had the opportunity to engage in brainstorming as to how to fix or correct the behavior. They'd committed to take some kind of action. The follow-up showed that the employee didn't take the action that they had committed to taking. So there's not really much to talk about in that context. I found this so helpful in the process. So documentation is important. We've got one last step to summarize things, and we'll close out this series. I'm sure glad you've been joining us. Stay tuned for one last session.